Yes. Yeah. Okay. So before I get into other activities of Active Directory, I want to speak about two kinds of users in Active Directory. Okay. Apart from the actual users of your organization, which are considered to be normal. Okay. We have Active Directory B2B, business to business. So this is a very simple concept. It looks like a very difficult one, or it looks like very trending, but it is nothing but adding a guest user to your Active Directory. Business to business is, let us assume if someone wants to audit, okay, what is happening in your account, he will be generally a third party, he will not belong to your organization. But in that cases, you want to add him an access. So first access authentication part, you give them by adding a new guest user. Let us look into how do you do that. Okay. Okay. I don't want to sign in. I want to switch the Active Directory. Yesterday we have created one premium Active Directory, right? Let us go to that. That was qtazure.com. Yes? Switch directory. ఏది యాడ్ చేసిన మనం default directory is fine, but yesterday we have created one user, man. I think that is this qualitythought.onmicrosoft.com. Why is this? I am already in that quality thought. Yes. If you go to Azure Active Directory over here, yeah, Qt DevOps was username. Yes. Okay. Right. So are using new user and new guest user. So whenever you want to create a guest user, new user will not allow you to give any different mail ID. So let me see what new user allows me to. Okay. Qt DevOps @gmail. Generally, if you give other email IDs, we get an error message saying that you don't belong to that domain. You cannot give that. But for the guest user, I can give any email ID because he is not the active user of my account. I want him to come to my account to participate in some activity, which is some business to business collaboration. So this means that you can add other companies' employees to your account if they are doing some kind of auditing or any business purpose which you have with the other organization. That is where you add it. Not doing that, but okay, QT. You just say invite. Now that user will receive an email notification saying that you are added, and from there he can log in, create his own credentials, and then get it through. Am I clear on this? Yeah. Okay. So what is B to B now? Just adding users. Okay. Right. So now there is one more thing in Azure. Azure B to C. So let me go to the documentation. I don't want to get into this. B to C. Okay, good. So Azure Active Directory B2C is giving your applications an access to your Active Directory. For example, you are creating a website. For that website, you want to basically ensure that it acts as an identity as a service. For that, you can create B2C. So see what happens. This is business and your customers are using any of the social contacts or other government medias. Now, from my these are my business applications. I can give an access into this. Okay, this is a purely developers area, but still we can understand what it is, everything supposed it to be. So for example, I am running my website and I can give access to any of the social email IDs or business or government IDs. How do I do that? Okay. So I use something called as Azure Active Directory B2C. I'll just give a link to this. Okay. Azure. I shouldn't forget the word called as Azure. Otherwise, it might be implied as if it is Windows stuff. Right. Okay. So you have users, you have applications, and then you have your actual Active Directory, and that might basically deal with whatever your on-premises is. It can be a federated login, it can be whatever you want it to be, right? Your applications are allowed to log in using Azure Active Directory, and the user might not be your application. User can be from any different stuff, right? That is B2C. This has gone to an extent, okay? We can basically do third-party portfolios. For example, I can give an access to my Twitter account to 10 of other users using their own email IDs or their own Twitter accounts, and they can post on my behalf. Okay. So here, what is my business? My business is I want someone to post on Twitter on my behalf. So for that, I'm adding customers, and my customers are whom they are users who belong to the different world. So they can be a Twitter users, they can be a Facebook users, and all of that stuff. So I can give an access to that kind of stuff. This is possible because Azure is identity as a service. It is not really just Windows Active Directory put on cloud. This you can never achieve in Windows. Okay, right. You can take anything. Whenever you see all of these areas, this is where it comes into play, right? So what you'll do is, let me show you one simple stuff. It would basically look mostly with developers stuff, but let me see if I can. It has too much. This is generally what your developers do, but still, let me see how much I can come into from here. So, Active Directory, app registrations. Okay. New registration. Okay. accounts in this organization only, multi-tenant. Okay. What is your application's URI? Okay. Name. Best. No, no. This is a straightforward stuff. Okay. So let me give some stuff. HTTPS:// direct DevOps.blog. Okay. Now this looks more like a dev area, but we can't help it. That's how it works. Okay. Then he's trying to tell that, do you want to add any platform? Do you want to add any account types? Okay. No, add a platform. Okay. So is your application mobile, web, or desktop application? I'm not sure whether you are getting or not, but basically whenever you log in with Facebook, log in with Microsoft, you'll be redirected to a different URLs. That is what it is asking to reset over here. I'll not do all of that. API permissions. Okay. Right. Let me take a easier route then. I'll try to do this. Azure AD B2C. Are you saying it is trying to tell that do you want to create a business to customer tenant? Yeah. You can do this. Okay. Unfortunately, I cannot do it over here. I have to switch to my default directory. Because remember, subscription has only linked to one Active Directory, and that is where you can create B2C tenants. Right now, our Active Directory which I have created, at least in my case, is not a one which is linked to a subscription. That's the reason why you are not seeing that. Okay. Let us see. Azure AD. Authentication methods. This is fine. This is all okay. I'm missing something, man. Okay. But it is not allowing me to create, right? Over here, I go to Azure AD B2C. Let me do one thing. Let me go to create a resource marketplace. Over here, AD Azure AD Active Directory B2C. Create Okay. Create a new Azure AD B2C tenant. What is the name of your organization? Quality dot okay. qt.onmicrosoft.com. No. qttest.onmicrosoft.com. Oh man. Qt test 1. At least this should be present. What else should I give? Qt Azure test. Yeah. Okay. Now, in which region do you basically belong? I basically say that create a directory. Okay. So basically, B2C is used for your applications, whereas B2B is to add users. Application users can be added using B2C. But this is generally done by your dev community because we don't belong here, but still. Now what you are trying to do is you are trying to create a tenant. And now in this tenant you will try to tell what is your application. And to your application what are the users whom you want to add. And from where do your users come in from. Okay. Fine. Let it take its own time. But while that is basically getting created, let us go to our next topic. This is generally not an activity of yours, but still we need to understand. B2B is all about users. B2C is all about applications. To your application that is running, you want to pull in more users. That is where you use B2C. Right. So, here. Right. Now, while this is happening, okay. Let me go to home. Remember we had the domain controller and we had to look at other settings. Yeah. Okay. So let me start this virtual machine. Okay. Right. This is up. Are you seeing applications? You can try to tell what is your application. Is your application an API or is it a native application? So you might tell my application is some test. Okay. Whether it is a web API or whether it is an application, does it have a native client? If it has a native client, where is the URL? You should tell your mobile apps details, right? So reply URL is https://direct-devops.blog. I'm just writing something for your application. Okay. All right. So this is your application, and for your application, and are you seeing there is an API access and there are published scopes, right? And are you seeing keys? These are the keys which you can basically generate a key, and whenever any application wants to access your application from here, okay, basically these are the keys which you can use. That is the first thing. And then are you seeing identity providers? These are the other users. Who your other users are? Are you seeing identity provider could be Amazon? Identity provider could be Facebook, Google. Okay, you can go on and on. There are many different things over here. For example, you can see that my identity provider is LinkedIn. For my application, users can come from LinkedIn. Whatever application which I have registered. If you have a mobile app or if you have a web app. So now what is my B2C trying to do? I am creating an application. Here I am trying to tell where my application is present. And for that I am trying to give identity. For that I am giving identity. And if you are not just linked to that, if you are not finding your stuff over here, you can find any OpenID connectors. Let us basically look into many OpenID connectors are available. So I'll just give a Google of that. Okay. OpenID connector to, let me go with, so if you go with Twitter, he will try to tell the authentication mechanisms and he will try to tell you what are the different things which you have. So for your Twitter application, you can start creating more users by adding an identity provider. But for that, you have to tell what is your identity provider and these are all the details that are required. But if your application belongs to, if your application belongs to any of this existing users, let us assume that I want to, what is looking good over here? Shall we add Facebook? Yeah. So now what happens? Whenever you are trying to log in into your application, so this is basically the URL where the stuff will go. You have to tell what is your client ID and what is your client secret. And if you know basically any web API application, whenever they are sending the request, they have to create this. Every application has to register with a client ID. And to be very specific, some of you people might know that while we even use Azure CLI, we create AZ login or connect Azure account and all of that stuff. So when we do all of that, every time a client ID is generated and a client secret is created along with that. So basically, Web API method is whenever any application wants to connect to your account, you will have some kind of a name, some kind of an ID, and some kind of a secret. That's all. This is where whole of this is getting into. So now for your application to configure Facebook, okay, log in with Facebook, you need not write too much of code. You just need to tell where your application is, right? Register a B2C tenant. If your suppose the provider is over here, wonderful. If it is not there, go and find a OpenID connector. Go and find a OpenID connector. This is the basic purpose of it. But okay, understand one thing. B2C is giving okay access to external users to Azure. This is what you might be doing. Okay. But whereas B2C is giving access to users from external world into applications, preferably running on Azure. That's the difference. There we speak about account users. Here we speak about application. And when we speak about application users, you and me as an admin will not have a control over that, right? This identity properties will be created by your dev. Okay. So to your dev, they need to know what are the different kinds of logins which they are trying to basically create. Okay. Right. Native app means your desktop applications. Native app means your desktop application. For example, Office. Okay. Native app is anything which you install directly. Right. Let us come back to our world. Okay. So I have an IP address over here. MSTSC-V Qt DevOps. Okay. Now let me go over here. AD Connect. Let me click on configure. Okay, not sure what I've given here. Okay, right. Okay, fine. So, oh man, I have unnecessarily clicked on configure. Fine, it's okay. Anyway, if we are connected to it. Okay, now let me basically show you some of the existing thing that can happen. So now are you saying suddenly there are some additional options which you are saying, trying to tell that okay, what are the applications which you want to sync with Azure AD now? Okay, in your company they might be using SharePoint, they might be using Dynamics, they might be using different Microsoft applications. Then it is asking, do you want to sync all of them with Azure AD, or you would tell that okay, now I will have a control. I am not interested in all of that, but I am interested in a third party application which I want to sync, or I am interested in let us assume Office 365 to be synced with this. Okay, you can do this. Okay, so I will go back to here. I am not going with app. Then are you saying it is asking what are the directory extensions which you want to sync? So these are the additional informations about your users. Okay, so whenever you create an Azure Windows Active Directory, you have lots of attributes about users. Who is the user? What is his first name? What is his manager's name? Right. So there are loads and loads of attributes which you can add. Then he's trying to tell that okay, what are the attributes which you want to basically added to Azure or synced with Azure? Okay. So sometimes he might require this. Okay. Right. Now Azure ADFS setup. Okay. Fine. Okay. This is the whole ADFS setup, but fine. We'll come back to this. Okay. Some of the people in the classroom have tried this, but understand one thing. Whenever you are trying this, you need to do a hell lot more than what is written over here. Okay. You cannot use public IP addresses. You use a private IP addresses for your Active Directory servers. Alright. Okay. Other areas of interest. So this is required if you are a Windows admin already. If you are not a Windows admin, you can skip these topics, not required. If they ask you in the interviews, that you just say that you don't know, it's okay. Okay. Everyone cannot answer them. Okay. For this, you need a prior knowledge of Windows Active Directory to a decent level. Okay. Right. Refer here to set up ADFS. What is ADFS? Azure will have some servers. Your Office also has an Active Directory, and whenever you are trying to log in into the Azure, it will try to ask. Okay, you are creating a trust relationship between Azure and the Active Directory in your Office. That is basically what this is all about, right? Okay. Now, hmm. But it's okay as long as they are in one forest. It's okay. If they are in different forests, then it is different Active Directories. Your organization might have 1,000 domains, but we have one forest. And here we are syncing the forest, not the domain controller. You start with one domain controller, but the whole point is you are syncing a forest if you understand correctly. Yeah. So it will be infosys.com, root forest, whatever you sync. In that you might have 100 domains. Right? All of that will be taken consideration. Okay. Because if you understand Active Directory, there are terms called as forest, site, and tree. Yeah. We are syncing forests, not sites. Okay. Azure. This is the next thing which can possibly come into play. What your organization might say is, okay, you have done AD connect. Now I have users. Good. Okay, you brought in the users. Now, whenever my users in my company are logging in into any of the applications that are hosted on Azure, I don't want them to give the same username and password multiple times. Why don't you take the single sign-on? Log in once and apply it to many things which are basically connected to it. I'm not sure how many of you have done that, but in Windows 10, while creating the account, even if you have a home account, it will ask you if you have a Microsoft account, log in into that. Once you log in into that Microsoft account, there is no need for you to, what you call, if you want to look at mails, there is no need for you to give your username and password because single sign-on is set up. And if you want to open OneDrive, any Microsoft application which has something to do with your account, then it will not ask you credentials because you are already signed in. Okay, it is taking your sign in from your Windows laptop into the applications. Now, if you want to set up something like that, that whole activity is called as single sign-on. Okay, and if you want to set up single sign-on, you have to follow this stuff. Okay. Are you saying over here, whenever we are installing Azure AD Connect, okay, uninstall or install Azure AD Connect in a new domain controller and don't use express settings, okay. Whenever you are using user sign-in, are you saying there is something called as pass-through authentication, federation? While installing AD Connect, you have these options, okay. So, you have to enable single sign-on. When you enable single sign-on, basically whenever your Active Directory is getting synced, some more groups will be created, some more users will be created, which can fetch some information from it. Okay. So whether you want to configure what is the kind of sign-on method, you have to basically select them while you are installing an AD Connect. Am I clear on this? So we have installed AD Connect and we have blindly use express settings. Express settings is by default it will go with one-way traffic. Okay. Moving all the users of yours from one from Active Directory in your office to Azure. Okay, but if you want any other stuff, then you can do this. Password synchronization, pass through, federation, and you are basically trying to tell her I don't want to sync my users. Okay, you can change any of this behavior. Okay, while you are basically configuring it. Okay, so this is one more link which I want. This is also okay. This anyone can have a look into because it is not that difficult. But the above one is particularly for the Windows administrators who have knowledge on Active Directory. Otherwise, don't even worry about it. Okay, to set up single sign-on. Okay, now I have to speak about one important thing: multi-factor authentication. Okay. Now what you want to tell to your users is whenever users are basically logging in, you want to set up multi-factor authentication. Just giving username and password is not sufficient. Okay. You want them to give an extra set of keys. That could be from, in Android you have many applications like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator and lot of that. Okay. Now you can set it up. But actually multi-factor authentication can be set up for any plan. For free plan also you can set it up. For free plan, per user, I think it will cost you $1.40 every month. Okay, but if you are already a part of a premium plan, that is enabled for you. So what I can do is, let me go back, switch directly to the premium planning. Okay, you enable premium till you are basically practicing this Active Directory. Okay, so that you come to know all the features of it. Okay, let me go over here. Azure Active Directory. Okay, so let me click on users. Where is it I'm missing? Okay. Fine. Right. I forgot the location of where it is present. Let me look into it. Multi-factor authentication. Sure. How it works? I'm not interested. How to configure is what? Okay. Okay. They have moved to getting started area. Right. Okay. In getting started. So what is that? Azure Active Directory, security, MFA, man. This always happens. Okay. Earlier, what used to happen was when you click on the Azure Active Directory and if you click on users, in the users, you used to have a logo over there. When you click on multi-factor authentication, it used to be present over here. Right. So, are you seeing over here? There is something called as manage MFA, multi-factor authentication. Yeah. Okay. So then it is trying to tell that okay, use MFA to protect your users. Yeah. Then it's trying to tell how this whole MFA concept works. MFA is easier way to understand MFA is whenever you are doing internet banking transfer along with your internet banking credentials, is it not sending an OTP? Why? Why do we need a second level over there? Because if someone gets a hold of your net banking username and password, still you are protected with one more level of security. That is a second factor that is added. If you want to do the same thing to the Azure, we use something called as multi-factor authentication. Okay. So now in your multi-factor authentication, you can use various different kinds of second factor along with your passwords. That can be apps, that can be. So I'm quite sure that you might have seen some of the people with some access key token key on RSA token key on in their ID cards and they carry all the time, right? So basically in Azure AD free, it is not available. Okay. If you have to do that, you have to basically do it. But if you want to set up the whole Active Directory, right? So this is how you basically do it. But remember, here there are certain things which we need to be very careful. Okay. Whenever you speak of security, whenever security is not about giving comforts to your user. Security is never about convenience. Security is not convenience to the user. Security is convenience to your organization because you don't want no one to get into that. So users might start complaining hell lot of different things now. I have forgot my password. Okay. Or multi-factor authentication I have set up with the mobile number. I have lost that mobile number. Now I don't have it. How do you do it? So you will have some administrative activities which will be more when you set these things up. But we can't help it. Okay. Right. Fine. Now. Okay. So this is a whole multi-factor authentication stuff. Okay. So here, this page will give you all sorts of links on how do you set up multi-factor authentication, right? So you can have various different methodologies, and based out of that methodologies, your stuff works. So then it is time to tell, okay, you want to set up multi-factor authentication. Okay. Allow users to create passwords to sign in to non-browser apps. Do not allow users to create app passwords to sign in into non-browser passwords. Skip multi operations from my intranet. So, for example, you can tell that okay, you can tell what is your intranet's network ID ranges, and then whenever users try to authenticate from here, it will not ask you of any other multi-factor stuff. Then it is asking what are the different verification options do you have? Text message to phone, notification through a mobile app, verification code sent from a mobile app or whatever it is, right? Allow users to remember multi-factor authentication on devices they trust before they have to re-authenticate. Let me not do that. Okay. Now I'll click on close. Come back over here. Okay. Now, account or lockout. So, here you can try to tell that whenever user is trying to do multi-factor authentications, when do you want to lock his account? When he does it 2 times or 3 times, invalid MFA, if you want to log out, those are the numbers, right? So, and then how many times you want him not to use your application. So, for example, in banks, what you do is if you give your password 3 times for that whole day, you will not be given an access to do any transfers. So, if you want to do something like that, you can basically do it. So, are you saying this? You can automatically unblock. You can, if you put it as 0, it will never be unblocked. You have to go and manually unblock it. Okay, depends on what is the security setting of your application. Then you can try to. Okay, so whenever your users are locked out or due to any multi-factor authentication stuff, your administrator can see all the users who are logged out, and from here you can manually say that okay, unlock this user or don't do anything for this user because this user is still logged out. Okay, and okay, so basically here these are called as fraud alerts. Whenever you allow users to submit fraud alerts, right? Whenever they find any information such as okay, any kind of a fraud stuff, they will basically send a request to you and you can start responding from here and you will be able to see the stuff over here. I'm not getting into this. Okay. Alright. Don't save it. Okay. So where do you want to send these notifications to? Whatever notifications which you receive on this multi-factor authentication notifications, do you have a specific email ID where you want us to send? Generally here you will give your admin's public distribution list, or if you don't have, you will give all the email IDs of your admins who are responsible for security. Yeah? Fine. Okay. So, oath. Right. So basically, these are the different kinds of tokens, and if you have all the tokens at one shot, you can apply this to over here. Remember, when we select multi-factor authentication, you will have some kinds of settings to be done. Okay, if you don't want your users to do those settings, and if you want you to configure that settings, then you can upload all of them as a CSV file. Okay. So if you have okay a phone number where users can come for multi-factor authentication, this is not the case. This doesn't work out also. But some companies do it. Multi-factor authentication is received by calling to a specific number. Okay, because they have some kind of a session over that. So for that, if that is your case, then you can put this stuff. Okay, but for all of us, okay, right. So basically, these are the providers, and remember, these providers you cannot add them; you can just list them. Okay. Earlier we had an option where we can add what is the provider which you want to use. Now we don't have that. Okay. And if you want to speak of any other rules which you want to set, okay, one-time bypass, caching rules. These are all the multi-factor authentication's basic rules. Right. Let me come down over here. There is one interesting thing over here. Okay. Are you seeing conditional access? Okay. This is very important whenever you are trying to configure multi-factor authentication. So, this policy, see what it is trying to tell. This policy requires multi-factor authentication for the following roles. The global administrator is the only thing which you might know over here. It's trying to tell that, okay, this user needs to know this. So, here we have different policies, and if you want, you can go ahead and create a new policy. While creating a new policy, let me basically give a test. Okay. Assignments. To whom do you want to give? Do you want to give to a specific user, specific group? Okay. Or to all users? Okay. So if you want to give them to only a Jedi group, you can give it a Jedi group also. You have that Jedi group over there. Okay. And now, for which application? Do you want to speak about any particular applications? No, I'll try to tell all applications. Okay. Or you can do user actions also. Okay. So if you basically want to specify particularly do for any user actions, but generally we give it for applications. So fine. Now let us look at this condition. This is where it is all about the stuff. Okay. Are you seeing sign in risk? Yeah. So sign in risk is, okay, you are trying to tell that configure multi-factor authentication when the risk is low, medium, or okay. So what is categorized as a risk? Azure has a machine learning algorithm which basically identifies what is your risk level. So for example, generally you log in from India and suddenly you have connected to VPN and you are trying to log in from US. That is a risk because your account might have been stolen. Right? You cannot travel very fast from India to US because last 2 minutes ago you were in login from Indian server and now you are doing it from some US location server. Now over here, you can basically try to, whenever that happens, you can ask the user, okay, now give me your multi-factor authentication again. That is what it is, right? So you can have various different kinds of risks. Now are you saying device platforms? When do you want to ask basically multi-factor authentication? When the device is any, or you can tell that, okay, when the user is trying to log in from any mobile phone, I'll ask, but as long as he's asking for laptops, I'm okay. So for example, to my employees, I give only Windows laptop. So I'll try to tell that. If it is Mac OS also, then I think you need to give a multi-factor authentication. You need to authenticate yourself again. Okay. Locations. Okay. You can tell that this configure, okay, any location or selected locations. For example, you can add all of your trusted locations. You can add all of your trusted locations. Trusted locations is every site of your office. Okay. And then basically try to tell that whenever user tries to log in from any location, give it. Whenever selected locations, then you need to basically go ahead and add what are the selected locations which you want to basically. Remember MFA's trusted IPs, when we created multi-factor authentication, it was asking for trusted IPs. Okay. So you have to fill that one up. In your organization, you generally do. So let me basically at this moment, I'll call it as. So client apps is in preview mode. Whatever is in preview mode, I am not touching because they are not released yet. Okay. So your company might not be interested because there is no SLA defined over it. Now what happens is when any of these cases happen, it will ask you for reconfirming your multi-factor. You might be logged in, fine. But it will ask you for the second set of passwords. Now, okay. Enable policy. Okay. On or off. Okay. Now, grant. Okay. Require multi-factor authentication. Require device to be done. I think these are enough. Okay. Session. Okay. Persistent browser session. Right. And let me click on create. So, what are your risks? You can always add some kind of policies, but Microsoft has already given you some policies. These will be more than enough. What is the only thing which you have to do is you have to make that state to on. If you see states of them are off. These four are more than enough. Okay. And now, whenever you are doing conditional activities, sometimes you might be connected using VPNs also. Now you try to tell what are your VPN certificates to this multi-factor authentication so that it also understands about it. What are your terms of use? Okay. So if you want to add any terms of use, you can basically add it over here so that any customer who is trying to log in into your application and whenever you receive your multi-factor authentication, you will basically see your terms of usage over here. Manas ilanti chadamu kakapothe they are legally very important. Yeah. Okay. Am I clear on this? Right? Many things to understand. Yeah. Okay, generally, right? Okay, this multi-factor authentication setup. Okay, all of these things we generally do. Okay, if you already are an admin, if you are not an admin, it is not expected out of you. But at least, okay, apart from ADFS, rest of the things are not complicated. ADFS is difficult. Yeah, ADFS expects you to have some kind of expert in Active Directory. Otherwise, you cannot even think of ADFS. But rest of the things you can follow the documentation and then do it. Okay. Multi-factor authentication, name sounds amazing. It is nothing but one extra level of authentication, not just username and password, one extra level. Your company decides what that extra level is. It can be a device, it can be a Microsoft Authenticator app, and these days we have extra set of authentications even for our Google accounts also. Right? Whenever you log in from Google, we try to tell that send an alert to an Android stuff. Only when you click on S, then only you will be allowed to log in. Yeah, so that is all multi-factor. Multi-factor has become quite common now. Am I clear on this? Okay. So we have one last thing to be spoken of. Okay, right? So identity protection. Remember, premium P2 plan has something called as identity protection and all that stuff. So in identity protection, what you can do is you can define what are your risk levels. Okay, remember in the last class we were trying to tell that when the risk is low or high, then give multi-factor authentication and all of that stuff. Here, see the conditions. Okay, so when do you want to protect your identities? When the risk is low and above, medium and above, and high and above. Generally, if you are any financial institution, you will start with low and above. Okay, right. And then controls. Okay, so select the controls to be enforced. Okay, allow access. Right, whenever there is a risk, and when you want to allow the access to your users, what you are trying to tell is ensure that his password is changed. Okay, this is the default stuff. Or if you don't want to do this, you can basically select block user. You can block the user, go to the user again, identify what is the problem that has happened with that account, and then you manually enable. Okay, or the easier thing, if you don't want to stop businesses, just ask him to change the password. Yeah. Now, if you see, these are all very, very, what do you call, difficult things to be done. So here, generally, right, whenever you change any of the configuration, it will try to show you what will be the effect of this now. So if you have Active Directory users, right now we don't have too much of users in here. So let us assume that you have 10,000 users. Now you are changing a policy. This will try to tell, saying that, okay, with you changing this policy, these number of users will be blocked, and this much number of users, for them, they will not have any issue. That is the percentage which it speaks about. And again, I said, security is not about comfort. Then it is asking, do you want me to enforce policy or not? Similarly, you have sign-in policy. And whenever any user is on risk, are you seeing risky users and risky sign-ins and risk detections? Okay. So your Azure Identity Protection will basically try to tell you the risks that are detected. And are you seeing notifications? You will have a weekly digest mail which you can send to any number of teams. Okay. And then you can basically notify users, okay, who are at risk. Okay. You are doing this activity. Okay. Alert user at least on a medium level risk. Okay. Add additional emails to your admin groups. And all of the risks that it has basically you found in your account will be basically reported or seen over here. Clear on this? Yeah. So ఇవన్నీ మనం చేస్తామా చేయకపోవచ్చు. But at least it is good to understand that in AWS, in Azure, we have something called as identity protection, and we have loads and loads of interesting stuff around it. Okay. And then named locations. These are the locations where you trust the stuff. This can be your company's different sites. Okay, what are the different IP addresses which belong to your organization? You say allow this so that access from here is considered to be low risk. Even if the user is trying to do that. But if it is from a public IP address and if there is some data that might be lost, then it will always considered as a medium or high, depending on what is the activity which user is trying to do. Am I clear on this? Right. Okay. So now for restricting the users, we have been discussing too many things, but there is one more important and interesting thing, which is, okay, how do I give the users authorization? Okay, we have not discussed about that. All these days we have been discussing about how do I bring in users. For that users, how do I allow them to use Azure? All of that, fine. You have users now. Once you have the users, how can you give them the access what they need? So, for example, all the DBAs needs to have access on Azure SQL servers. How do you do that? Right? All of your Windows and Linux administrators of your organization also needs to have an access on virtual machines. Okay, so how do you give that? And if you remember, we have started this Azure with a discussion called as RBAC, role-based access control. Okay, and there we have discussed that there are some popular roles: global administrator, contributor, owner. Yeah. So what are they? What do those policies define, and how do I write my own policies? That is our next class agenda. And with that, I think we will try to conclude our identity discussion, and we'll head towards storage. We will discuss towards storage. Okay, right. There is loads and loads of things to remember, especially for the people who are writing certifications. Whatever I have spoken, every word could be a question from the last few days. So whenever you just go through whatever I'm giving as refer here, I'm giving that because of that. Okay, you need to go through that. Okay, సర్టిఫికేషన్ వేరే వాళ్ళతో రాస్తున్నామండి 2000 ఇచ్చండి గొడవ లేదు, కానీ మీరు రాస్తుంటే మాత్రం నేర్చుకోండి అయ్యా. ఓకే, బట్ అలా రాసే సర్టిఫికేషన్ 4 గీసుకొని కూడా పనికిరాదు, అది కూడా గుర్తుపెట్టు. ఓకే, సో ఎవరన్నా AZ 103 సర్టిఫైడ్ అతన్ని నన్ను ఇంటర్వ్యూ చేయమంటే నేను సింపుల్ క్వశ్చన్లు అసలు సచ్చిన అడగను. Because AZ 103 certified or AZ 201 or 301 certified means this guy knows about Azure. So why the hell should I ask basics? Can you tell me what is CIDR? No, I'll not ask that dumb questions. I'll ask something which is serious. And my interview will be short. 3 or 4 questions, serious questions, difficult questions. If he is able to answer them, get him through. If that is not the case, don't even think of him. So he has not written the certification, someone else has written for him. తెలిసిపోతుంది అంతే. 3 క్వశ్చన్. సర్టిఫైడ్ వాళ్ళతో ఉన్న బెస్ట్ అడ్వాంటేజ్ అదే, వాళ్ళ ఇంటర్వ్యూ తక్కువ సేపులో అయిపోవచ్చు, ఎందుకంటే నిజంగా రాసి ఉంటే అతనికి తెలుస్తుంది. ఓకే, సో ఇఫ్ యూ జస్ట్ టెస్ట్ 1 క్వశ్చన్ అబౌట్ వెదర్ he has written the certification correctly or not, and then what is the knowledge that he has gained in that subject, that is more than enough. If those 2 are success, he can work. ఓకే, కాకపోతే డబ్బులు ఇచ్చి రాయించారు అనుకోండి, మీకు ఎలాగో తెలియదు, ఆడు ఎక్కువ క్వశ్చన్లు అడుగుతాడు, టఫ్ క్వశ్చన్లు అడుగుతాడు. రైట్, సో డోంట్ గెట్ సర్టిఫికేషన్స్ బై పేయింగ్ టు సమ్వన్. రైట్, ఓకే, రైట్. Can we restrict the sync of a specific child domain? Okay, so if you basically are using AD connect with express settings, you cannot do that. AD connect with express settings. If you want to change any of them, you have to go and configure them manually. Today I have asked you, while you are installing single sign-on, don't use express settings, and there will be a whole settings, right? You cannot use express settings. It can be done, but the whole point is you are not supposed to use express settings, right? Are there any real kind of situations where we need to enable MFA? These days every organization enables MFA. That's the whole point. That's the reason why I'm speaking about it. MFA another every organization is using. There is no specific case around it. If they can afford it, they are doing it. Okay, correct. Okay, then I'll stop it at that, and tomorrow we'll continue our discussion on role-based access control. Okay, and tomorrow I want you to bring your laptops. Okay, and today you will be getting a recording from Satish, which speaks about, in one AWS class I have spoken about JSON. Okay, so that JSON classes details will be sent to you, because role-based access controls are written in JSON. We need to understand JSON. Yeah, okay. JSON okay.